Fluorocarbon or braid? Which one? Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Bass Cave. It's been a while since we shot a video out of this place. I have been on the road. This is the first opportunity that I've had to get back to this. I want to start off this video with where we kind of left off at Oneida. There were some things that I was talking about in the video before we went there. I brought some props here. This is one of them. This is a big one. We were talking about running straight fluorocarbon throughout the event. I had done some research before I'd gone up. I noticed some of the northern guys, some of the big hammers, straight fluorocarbon. And I was trying to get to the bottom of it. You guys left some different opinions in the comments, which I really appreciate. Obviously, leave more in this video. We're going to get to it. But I've learned a lot about this right here. And we're going to get into that along with the jigs and setups and some more things that I learned that I think can help critique. Maybe even throw in some video of some of the things that happened throughout that event. So you guys don't go anywhere. We're going to get right to it. So following right after the tournament at Lake Oneida, man, I haven't been home in like 3 weeks. Right after Oneida, we went straight into Kurt Dove's Pro Bass Camp, which was up there at the same lake. That was a week-long event. We had 24 kids up there. You guys have probably seen the video. If you haven't, man, go back and check it out. I just dropped it last week. Really, really cool experience. I wished I could have had something like that whenever I was that age. It's incredible how advanced these kids are today, and it was great to be able to spend a week with all of them and their excitement for the sport. Left there, drove home, two and a half day drive to get home from that. I basically spent about 23 hours at home and then jumped on a plane to go down to ICAST to help out there. So I was down in Florida for 4 or 5 days. And this is the first opportunity I've had to get back to this. And I've been thinking a lot about it because I experienced a lot of different things throughout that event at Oneida. Like I said, fluorocarbon, straight fluorocarbon. I was throwing FC Sniper. This is, I believe, 12-pound test, but I was throwing 10 on the reel that you see there. So, like I said, I had noticed that a lot of the guys were using straight fluorocarbon and not the usual braid that we see. And so I learned a lot about that. I put it on. I went through the different ideas of what that might have been about on the way up there. One of you guys left a comment that it could be the wind, and I do agree that the fluorocarbon is a benefit up there in that north country where the wind blows a lot and it blows hard. You don't get those big loops in your line. The fluorocarbon was a big advantage to that. But as far as casting distance, sensitivity, hook setting, it was not better. Wasn't better overall. I did use it throughout the entire practice and I used it throughout the tournament, and this is why. The big advantage to me with the fluorocarbon was that I was throwing a jig primarily throughout that event. And there are so many darn zebra mussels in the bottom of that lake that you would literally lose a bait because of a zebra mussel, sit down, tie a brand new jig on, stand right back up, fire it out there, and on the very next cast it would get hung and cut. I mean, just that quick. If I was using leaders constantly throughout the event, man, I'd be retying leaders out there on the lake. No matter if I laid 4 rods up there, I'm going to be tying leaders. And I don't want to be tying that many FG knots. I don't. Not on the water, not that many. That alone really let me use the fluorocarbon. That's why I stayed with it. To me, that's the biggest advantage that I had. Was just the fact that I didn't have to, you can just pull off a couple of feet of line wherever the nick's at, get some clean line, nip it, retie, and you're back out there. If I'd have had leaders, it would be sit down, that leader's too short because, Oneida being a shallow lake, a lot of those casts, are long casts and shallow water, anywhere from 5 foot to 10, 15 foot. It's not deep. And those fish, I don't want them to see that leader line. I don't want them to see that braid. So I wanted away from them. So you're going to have long leaders. And it wouldn't take very many casts of retying that you're going to have to retie a new leader on. Not only breaking off, but just the fact that I was constantly retying throughout the day. I mean, you're just constantly, almost every cast, you're checking your line to see if you've got nicks in it. Matter of fact, I have one still tied on from the week of bass camp. And I don't know if you guys can see that, but there are nicks and frays all up and down that line. It's constant, dude. And this was the rod that got stuck in the box after we got done with the bass camp. But it was definitely an advantage. Now, you'll notice that the rod that I just picked up is what I went to after the event was over. Yeah, I went to a Baitcaster. And I don't know if it makes a difference or not. Spinning rod, tournament, I threw 10-pound test line, lots of pressure, lots of people out on the same spots, trying to get a bite. After the event was over, for the first time, I picked this rod up, laid it up there with the jig. This is 16-pound test. Same kind of line, right? Still FC Sniper, but 16. Big difference between this and that spinning rod as far as landing fish. So like in the tournament, you'll go back, you can see some video cut maybe, where I set the hook and lost them right off the bat. Oh, that's my fault. Because of the nicks that were in my line. Even though I had just retied before I made that cast, this 16-pound test line gives you a little bit more oomph from breaking whatever the zebra mussels are cutting you off. One of the other big things that I really, really liked about the Baitcaster was just the feel of it. So like there was a lot of grass and stuff there, and you're always trying to, you know, break your jig clean of the grass, like you fire out there and it lands in the grass, you know, and it's on a long cast. I don't just want to reel it back in with all that grass over it and clean it. I want to be able to, you know, rip my rod tip up and rip that bait clean of the grass, and a lot of times that's where you get a bite. It was much easier to do with this Falcon Amistad. Now this is a 7.3 and this is a medium heavy action rod. The problem that you run into with this has an issue as well. The jig that I'm using, if you can see that hook, I don't know if it'll show it or not. Let me put it right there and block my face out. If you can see that hook on that jig right there, it's not a very thick hook, and it has a tendency to bend. Now, with that being said, I tried a couple of different hooks, or a couple of different jigs. This was the one that I primarily threw, and this is the one that I like. This is the Kitech. But it definitely has an issue with the hook. There's no doubt. Even straightened it out with, not completely straightened, but I definitely bent it out, even with a spinning rod and 10-pound test line. The other jig that I had in my box was the Beast Coast. This has probably got a little bit better hook in it. It has no weed guard whatsoever. I just wasn't as fond of this jig. It's got a little bit bigger head. It's not quite a small diameter and smaller profile as the Kitech is, and so the Kitech was kind of my favorite. Now, is there really a difference between the two and what they eat? I couldn't tell you if there is. I do think there's another jig out there that's got a better hook in it, just from being told, but I have forgotten the name of it, but somebody mentioned it to me in my discussions, I believe, while I was down at ICAST, and we were talking about these tungsten jigs. Crazy about these tungsten jigs, dude. Crazy. Like, love them. They're the deal. No doubt. I don't know that I mean, some of the finesse jigs that I throw, the LBJ, I'm going to be looking for those in tungsten from now on. That's how much I like it. The sensitivity and what you can feel with this jig is incredible. The small profile I love. It's just an awesome little jig, dude. And a 1/2 ounce, it gets down there pretty good, and I like that. The trailers that I was using, this is a kamikaze crawl, just in green pumpkin. I would say that the crawl is the one that I use the most, and used that. I also used the Strike King Rage Crawl tail some. And then as we went on into the week with the kids camp, you can see that right there. Let me turn it that way. Yeah, you can see that good. This is a very, very detailed look at a goby. And some of the kids were using the Berkeley flatworms. This is actually the Smalley Smasher by Big Bite. And dude, that thing looks like a goby. And I honestly believe that that is probably the best trailer. That thing was dirty, dude. Didn't learn that till the week after, along with a chatterbait bite, which we'll get into in a little bit. But my setup during the tournament was this spinning rod, and you guys saw me lose some largemouth. I didn't lose smallmouth with it. The smallmouth, for whatever reason, I never really lost them, but the largemouth, the few that I would hook during the day, and one of them ended up being a really big one that cost me quite a bit, didn't stay hooked up. And, you know, the hook was a little bit flexed, I was making short pitches. That fish happened to be in grass. If I had that fish to do over with again, I would have liked to have had it on a baitcaster and see if I would have landed it. I don't know. The fish came straight up and through the bait. I hit it right on time. I mean, this spinning rod is a 7'6" medium action spinning rod. This thing's not limp. It's got some backbone to it. Now, it doesn't have near what that baitcaster does with that Amistad rod, but like I said, that Amistad does tend to flex the hook even more, and so therefore that could cause a fish loss as well. So I think what I've come to terms with is the ultimate setup would probably be that rod with 16-pound test line and a heavier hook jig. That's probably, you know, doesn't have to be a bigger hook. It's just got to be a better hook that's not flexing so much. I think that would probably solve a lot of the problems. The 16-pound test line would have given me a better advantage during the event of being able to break my bait free from the grass, and also probably less break-offs during the tournament once you hook one of those fish up. 16-pound test line, am I going to get as many bites? That's a big question as well. And that's why I stayed with a spinning rod, because I had so many bites in practice. It generated a lot of bites. And there's no doubt that there's a difference between throwing 10 and throwing 16. Big difference. Big difference. And first day of the event, I don't lose any fish. I just catch a whole lot of fish. I mean a whole lot of fish. It was the second day that came back to bite me. Either break-offs or them throwing it. So, I mean, landing, you're never going to fish 100%, but that's the easiest way to up your performance in tournament fishing, is to be really, really critical on your hookup land ratios, because you can't get those back. And a lot of that is tackle oriented. It's tough for me to practice because I live here in Oklahoma and I'm not throwing spinning rods with half-ounce jigs on 10-pound test line. It just doesn't happen. So I don't get a lot of practice at that. But that baitcaster felt good. But you know, there is that chance that I wouldn't have gotten the bites that I got on the 10-pound with the spinning rod. So I'm going to leave that up in there for you guys. But definitely the fluorocarbon. If I went back up there and I was going to throw it on a spinning rod, which I don't think I would. I thought originally, this was another big thing, I thought that I could make longer casts with that 7'6" spinning rod than I could with that baitcaster. But I can honestly tell you that with that half-ounce jig on there and that small profile that it's got, dude, you can sail that thing with a baitcaster. It'll go. So that really wasn't true either. Probably should have checked that out during practice a little bit, but that's what I've learned. That's what I came away with. I definitely felt better with the bigger line on the following week during that kids camp, because I was throwing it and landing fish. Like I said, I just showed you that line that had some frays on it, and I continued to fish with it like that. And you got a lot better chance of putting some of those 3 to 4 pound smallmouth in the boat with 16-pound test line with those nicks in it. So those zebra mussels were, man, they're everywhere. There's a lot of them, and they're tough to deal with. One of the no-nos that I learned about this right here, this is no good whatsoever for drop shotting. It is definitely, you want braid. Line twists and all that is a problem. Whenever you're casting and you're throwing a bottom bumping bait, you know, I didn't have the problems with the line twist that much, but anytime I picked up a drop shot, and if it was straight fluorocarbon, was not good. I changed that before the tournament even started and put that back on braid. You guys that are wondering about my pink braid, some of you guys, this is actually what it is. It's the Fire D braid. This is Sunline. This is actually one of their JDM products, but you can buy this in the US. This is good stuff, man. I'm crazy about this stuff. It's actually pink. It's really, really soft. It's really supple. Ties good knots. It holds knots well. Really started using this stuff last year. I just found it last year, started using it, and I'm crazy about it. It's really, really strong. And then obviously I'm tying a leader to it. Using the FG knot to tie fluorocarbon to this. Usually use an FC sniper with this stuff, and anywhere from 10 to all the way down to 6-pound test leader. I believe on the one I was using there, I was using an 8-pound test leader there where we just were at Oneida. So good stuff. I like it a lot. Using it on the same rod and reel setup, it's still on this same Falcon Expert. It's a 7'6" rod. This rod is perfect for northern smallmouth. It's got enough backbone to it, but it's got enough length at 7/6 out there in that open water. I prefer it over some of the 7-foot rods that I use here in the South to skip around docks and things like that. So that was a big deal for me up there as well. All right, guys, final conclusion. Braid or fluorocarbon? Anytime I'm fishing anywhere around a lot of zebra mussels or I'm having to do a lot of retying, fluorocarbon's going to get the nod. It's just the simple fact of I'm not having to retie that leader over and over and over onto this braid, whether I'm using an FG knot or whatever, because I was literally checking my knot on almost every single cast and retying probably every 3. If I'd have tried to do that with braid to a fluorocarbon leader, it would have been a freaking nightmare no matter what, guaranteed. So that's about the only time I'm going to go straight fluorocarbon. Other than that, I see no other advantage whatsoever. It's braid for me all the way. All right, guys, hope this helped. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget, bump that like, hit that subscribe. And guys, I'm watching you. Some of you still haven't hit that subscribe button. Guys, till next time, I'm out of here.